Hi, this is Lisa, and you are listening to I Love That Movie. This podcast is for movie lovers. It's not an unbiased opinion, it's not a straightforward review, it's just a couple people talking about a movie that they love. The format is each week I have a guest, and that guest and I discuss a movie that they love, something they're obsessed with, something they connect with. We'll talk about the plot, the director, and the actors, but we'll also talk about the personal connection my guest has with that movie. So if that sounds like something you want to listen to, keep listening. Hey, this is Lisa, and if you want to catch up with me on X or Twitter, that's at ILTM Podcast. I'm also on Instagram at I Love That Movie Podcast, and we have a Patreon. The show's always free, but if you want to support me on there, you can. That's at patreon.com/I Love That Movie, and every week I put out a weekly bonus episode of all the other stuff I'm watching besides the movies that we talk about on here. So if we have a lot of fun on there, and if you want to check that out, you can. But I do have a new guest with me today. I have Emmet Davis. Say hi, Emmet.
Hello.
Hello. And if you wouldn't mind, I think this is your first time on the podcast, so if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself just a bit.
Yeah, first time. Yeah, I'm Emmet. You can find me on Twitter or wherever at Emmet Davis 7. I host a podcast and a YouTube show with a friend of mine, Chris Evans. It's called Gathering of the Geeks. There we talk about things, and yeah, they usually do that every Sunday. Yeah, I live up in Canada, so there's that.
Nice.
Yeah, that's about it though.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, and so if you're just now tuning into the show and this is your first time listening, then just to give you a little bit of behind the scenes, our guest always picks the movie. Now, in this case, Emmett and I went back and forth a little bit because we've covered quite a few movies on here. So we went, it wasn't necessarily your very first choice, but you did choose it technically. What movie did you choose to talk about today?
Yeah, so I chose the Royal Tenenbaums.
Great. I love this movie. Like this
Yeah,
is one, yeah.
I was yeah, sorry, I was happy that you said that when I requested it. Like it's always a nerve-wracking thing that I could have said the Royal Tenenbaums. You're like, oh great, that movie. But when you said that you liked it, I'm like, oh good, that's a good thing, and I don't have to torture you for an hour talking about how much I love a movie and you don't love it. So that was always a plus for me.
Honestly, people ask that sometimes. They're like, what about when someone
Mm.
picks a movie that you don't like? And
Ah.
I kind of like that too in a way because
Mm.
then you're looking at it through different eyes. And sometimes
Mhm.
it's really changed my mind, actually.
Good.
I walk away thinking I don't like it. And then when I hear
Hmm.
someone talk about how much they love it, it might actually change my view of it. So
Yeah,
either
for
way, it's
sure.
good. But I am a Wes Anderson fan, so this was an easy
Oh,
one
good.
for me.
Awesome.
Um, Yes. So, Emmett, if you could kind of, I guess, walk me through. So this movie came out in 2001. When did you first see this film? Did you see it in the
Yeah,
theaters or video?
I don't think I saw it in theaters. Like this movie was so long ago now. I was 15 when it came out.
Okay.
So I was in grade 10 in high school.
Wow.
The DVD that I have says 2002 on it. So like I live in a small town, so we don't really have we have a theater, but it's not a big one. It doesn't play, I would say, these types of movies. It only plays
Hmm.
like the big blockbuster type of movies that make
Yeah.
money. So I definitely don't think I saw it in theaters, but I definitely think I saw it in the DVD that I bought from a local store after a friend recommended it to me. Yeah, I don't know if I saw it when it came out in 2001 or if I saw it in the first time in 2002 with the DVD that I have.
Hmm.
That's a mystery to the time, I guess.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I feel like the first time I saw this movie was on DVD. Like I remember the DVD, the way it looked. It was like two discs. It had a bunch of
Hmm.
extras and things like that. And I think I got into it because at the time my uncle was kind of a movie buff, and he was into like artsier films, and he introduced it to me. And then yeah, basically I think this is the movie that made me a fan. Although I think I might have seen Rushmore before this.
Hmm.
So that could have been my first movie, and maybe I just didn't realize at the time that it was the same director, but
Hmm.
I remember really appreciating it and really liking it.
Yeah.
But I don't think I saw it in theaters either.
Yeah, it was definitely the first Wes Anderson movie that I saw. So I saw this first, and then I went back and watched Rushmore and Bottle Rocket. So this was my first introduction to the Wes Anderson verse, I suppose.
Yes, it kind of is a Wes Anderson verse in a
It
way. I mean,
is.
he
Yeah.
definitely is a highly stylistic director, and I know,
Hmm.
when you said you were worried how I felt about him, I feel like
Hmm.
that's a thing. He's a little polarizing. It's kind of like Tim Burton or other directors that have a very specific style. Over time, it feels like it can be a little bit polarizing.
Yeah, well, and over time too, like it feels like he does make the same movie every
Mm-hmm.
single time, and every time you see his cast, it's like there's no extras. Like
Yeah,
every person is like, oh, I know exactly who that is. So it's like at
yeah,
it,
that's
like
true.
I feel that way over his last two, French Dispatch and Asteroid City. It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I think I've seen this movie before 20 years ago. So
Yeah,
I
like.
get the idea of some people thinking that's, I don't know, played out or tiresome in some way. But
Mm-hmm.
if you really like the Wes Anderson style, then, I'm sure you're just eating all of them up.
Yeah, the last couple, I haven't seen Asteroid City. I did see The French Dispatch, and that was good, but it wasn't the Grand Budapest good to me. So I
Oh, yeah.
thought, it was enjoyable, but like you said, it did feel a little bit like a replay of one of
Hmm.
his earlier films. So, okay, so we've gone a little bit far into the Wes Anderson dialogue without even talking about this movie specifically. So, I do want to point out to our audience that I don't really do spoiler free and then spoiler filled anything. I think we're just going to talk about it organically. So, spoilers may come up. So, that is to say, if you're still listening, this could be your opportunity to pause, go see the movie, come back. If not, and you're still here, I'm going to go ahead and read the synopsis. And this was pulled from Wikipedia. I'm not going to lie. I just picked the one that's like the easiest one to read out to you. But if you're still with us, here's the synopsis. So, Royal Tenenbaum and his wife Evelyn had 3 children, and then they separated. All 3 children are extraordinary, all geniuses. Virtually all memory of the brilliance of the young Tenenbaums was subsequently erased by 2 decades of betrayal, failure, and disaster. Most of this was generally considered their father's fault. The Royal Tenenbaums is the story of a family's sudden, unexpected reunion one recent winter.
This is a comedy, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay, got it. All right, just making sure.
It is. It's a comedy.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
sounds grueling, but it's not. That's a good thing to
Exactly.
point out. Absolutely. Usually in this section too, I like to do a couple of quick facts. So I'll just throw out a couple of quick facts, usually taken from IMDb. Why reinvent the wheel? That's where all our favorite facts come from. So I will read a couple of those to you, and then if you have a couple that you wanted to pitch in, like feel free. So Gene Hackman mentioned in interviews that he was somewhat hesitant to accept this part, as he felt that he himself had been insensitive to his own family at different points in his life. He asked them if they would find him playing this character uncomfortable for their own sakes, and they agreed that he should accept the part. What do we think about that?
I'm glad that he did accept the part. That's for sure.
Same. Yeah.
Just because, like, Gene Hackman's like one of like the greatest actors like who's ever existed. Like their complete, filmology is like everything that they've done from The Conversation to, Unforgiven it's just endless amounts of greatness from Gene Hackman. But then when you get him in this kind of a role where like, it's not hard to hate Gene Hackman in a lot of movies, but a
Yeah,
different kind
true.
of hate in this one. But he's also got this like quirky, lovable, humorous side to him. So like I love Gene Hackman, but like I also love when you see actors doing something that is a little bit different for them as well.
Agreed.
Again, Gene Hackman's like a hard-nosed kind of guy in a lot of his movies from like the
Hmm.
70s and 80s, and seeing him here now is kind of a a loser dad and
Yeah.
grandfather, who's got some one-liners, but then he's also very sly and everything about him. So like I said, I'm happy that he did this role because it's unlike a lot of Gene Hackman roles that he has done before.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, didn't have it as one of my facts, but was kind of a little bit sad when I was reading about, him potentially bullying Wes Anderson on set and getting really mad at him. Although Wes Anderson kind of defends him, saying it was supposed to be like an easy, one of his final films and
Mm.
comfortable for him, but it really wasn't. But, you know, maybe he saw something in Gene Hackman that's like, you could be really good at this part because you're a little bit difficult. And, maybe
Yeah.
his family agreed with that. They're like, well, that's true. I mean, we've made amends now, but yeah, there's been time. So I don't
Hmm.
know, maybe it's the right fit for him. But I agree with you. I actually saw The Conversation only a couple years ago. It was during the pandemic, and there wasn't a lot to do. And Brett Weiss, who's been on the show quite a few times and taught film and was, a runner of some local film festivals here in Dallas, would hold these sort of online discussions, and we talk about like a specific movie, and he'd invite one of his colleagues to talk. And one of those movies was The Conversation, and it was so good. I loved it. It was great getting to see that for the first time, and then to talk so much about it. Yeah, Gene Hackman is obviously one of the greats, and
Yep.
don't want to take that away from him at all. Um,
No.
kind of rolling with the Texas theme, since I talked about Dallas a little bit. This is actually the first film by Wes Anderson that was not filmed in Texas,
Hmm.
which I found that interesting because I feel that, is Rushmore really filmed in Texas? I feel like we have to fact check that because that doesn't sound
I
right
was
to me a
gonna
little
say
bit.
it doesn't take place in Texas, does it?
I don't think so, but there have been movies that, aren't actually in Texas, but they were filmed
Sure.
there. Especially it could have been around that time too, because I feel like there are some movies like, I don't know, Office Space and things like that that you wouldn't necessarily think were filmed here, but
Hmm.
maybe for tax reasons. But anyway, somebody out there fact check me because I'm not going to do that right now.
Is
But
Texas one of those places where it just looks like everywhere else? Like, is
it's
that what it is?
very flat, but we do have some hill country, and I mean,
Okay.
yeah, I think, corporate environments, things like that might be a good
Hmm.
space to film it in, but it's usually identifiable to us locals. So somebody out there look it
Okay.
up. But Wes Anderson, I believe, is from Texas,
Hmm.
and that's why Luke Wilson and Owen Wilson are in his movies a lot. Kind of a little known fact, Luke Wilson and Owen Wilson are the children of one of the forerunners of KERA, public television,
Hmm.
PBS. Yeah, look it up. It's crazy. I
Did
saw
not
that
know
one time actually on PBS. They were like, by the way, but look that up. So there's a lot of Texas roots here, so it could be possible.
that. Hmm.
But someone fact check that.
Interesting.
Um, the last thing I had was that Brian Tenenbaum, who plays one of the paramedics, was a friend of Wes Anderson, Owen Wilson, and Luke Wilson at the University of Texas. Texas again. Anderson made a film using his surname because he just said, I like the name. Brian Tenenbaum's sister is also named Margot.
There you go.
There you go. All full
It's
circle.
all, yeah, that's right. The connection is
Yeah.
becoming very apparent here.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Okay. So we've talked a little bit about some quick. Did you have any that you wanted to start off with before
I've
we
got
kind of
two
dive
actually,
deeper?
which are
Okay.
fun.
Yes. Go for it.
I've got two. So there's a third Wilson brother in this movie.
Oh, that's right.
Andrew
Yeah.
Wilson. It's the guy who cuts off Margot's finger. The
Oh.
farmer guy is that guy. He also does the voice for one of the tennis commentators, as well as Wes Anderson is the other commentator in that group. And for the longest time, I thought it was Jason Schwartzman, another Wes
Yeah.
Anderson collaborator, but I guess they have both
Yes.
have the same kind of nasally voice that sounds the same. So that's always a fun one for me. Is just the third
That's
Wilson
cool.
brother. is in
Yeah,
this movie as well.
the little known Wilson. I did
That's right.
also, while you were talking, looked it up, and apparently Rushmore was filmed in Houston.
Oh, there you go.
So that, yeah, I looked it up. It just said, I typed it in for me. I was like, where was Rushmore filmed? You know, and it's like Houston. I'm like, okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll keep the theme going. I do plug Texas a lot on my show since I'm from
Okay,
Texas, but
that's fair. That's okay. My co-host Chris is from Texas as well, so we talk about Texas occasionally.
isn't that weird? Like, I do think
Yeah.
it's a state where we're a little too into ourselves and talk about it
Oh.
too much. And then I find that I still do it, even though I find that annoying. But, anyways, so
Hmm.
back to this movie. We talked a little bit about Wes Anderson, and you shared, that this sparked your love of Wes Anderson films. I think it did for me as well.
Hmm.
Is this your favorite Wes Anderson film, though?
No, it's not. And when I said that I wanted to talk about this movie, I almost punched myself because there could have been so many of the Wes Anderson movies to talk about.
Yeah,
Grand Budapest Hotel I think is his best
lovely.
movie.
Yeah. It's like a
But my
pinnacle of
favorite,
all of the good stuff he did in
yeah,
like one film. Yeah.
like 100%. It's just too good. But my favorite is probably The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou.
Oh, I love Life
Um,
Aquatic too.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
it's Bill Murray, like 100% Bill Murray. Um,
100%.
it's fun, but that the visuals are great. The settings, the music is really fun. The cast of characters in that one is really fun, and just the idea of like a Jacques Cousteau kind of rogue character. Yeah, and the ending of that movie with the shark and everyone in the submarine is just so beautiful. And uh,
Yes.
yeah, it's very sneaky funny, but also very vulgar. Like it's total Wes Anderson turned up to like 1,000, and that's probably why people don't like it as much as his other ones. But yeah, that one's my favorite.
I like it too. And you know what's weird to think about? You mentioned Jacques Cousteau. I wonder how many people watch it these days. Like
Mm.
now it's an old movie and
Yeah,
they don't even know who Jacques Cousteau is. Like
no.
it's not part of the pop culture consciousness
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
Okay, my favorite. Honestly, my favorite's probably Rushmore. I
Yeah.
adore that movie. It is so funny to me. And I think that's probably the first time I ever saw Jason Schwartzman and
Hmm.
became a huge fan of him from that film. He's done a lot of great things since then, and I feel like maybe one of the most similar characters to who he is in that movie is an HBO show that a lot of people didn't watch called Bored to Death that I
Hmm.
really liked. Anyways, I really like that movie. But second place is hard to say. Like Royal Tenenbaums, honestly, is really up there for me.
Hmm.
I think this movie had a big impact on me. I became, kind of a big fan after that. And I
Hmm.
feel like it got me back into, I don't know what your local indie movie place is, but for us it was the Angelica.
Mm.
And I feel like I went to the Angelica a lot more after I saw
Yeah.
this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. And so, okay, let's talk. How about we talk a little bit about the cast? We've talked about the director. This is a huge cast, right? So
Hmm.
I feel like we should kind of dive in. We've talked about some of the actors, but where do you want to start?
Yeah, so like we talked about Gene for a bit there, but
Hmm.
like my favorite character in the movie is Richie
Oh,
Tannenbaum.
yes,
So
Richie.
talking about Luke Wilson, who, he's very subtle in the movie, but
Yeah.
like this idea of a sports figure, I love his mannerisms. Like for some reason,
Yes.
when when him and Royal are walking away from their the graveyard in the funeral, or
Hmm.
not for the funeral, when they go to the grave for the first time and they check on Royal's mom, and then they're looking at going to Chaz's wife's, and there's a guy walking down the path, and he says, "Hey, bomber," and all Richie just stops and he points his finger at him, like,
Oh, yeah.
just something about this weird mannerism, like, "Hey, buddy, how's it going?" Like, but he doesn't say hello. And then there's the other time where he's getting off the boat, and Margot's picking him up, and people are asking for a picture, and he stands there with his arms crossed, like he's taking this. But he's such a nice guy. But I just like the way he moves, and I like the way he talks, and his story is so emotional as well.
Yes, I agree.
That like his roller coaster of emotions that he's going through, and
Yeah.
the realizations that he stumbles upon, and everything about that character. And Luke Wilson like doesn't get enough. I don't think he gets enough credit for his acting ability, because
I
he's kind of
agree.
a rom com, goofy comedy kind of guy.
Yeah.
But in this one, it's like when he's cutting his hair and he's doing the suicide thing in the bathroom. It's
Yeah.
such a heavy scene, and it's all facial features for him. I think he just does an incredible job
Yeah.
in the movie.
I would agree with that. I think, out of the two, I feel like Luke Wilson has had the bigger career. And he certainly usually brings like a bigger performance, more almost like more character acting work, where Luke is a little bit more understated. But I think he really shines in this film. Like you said, the performance is very nuanced and interesting. Yeah, Richie was one of my favorites. As you were talking too, I was thinking about how I was I think a little bit older when this movie came out, more like later end high school, I think. And yeah, because I graduated in like '02. You think I would know exactly when I graduated, but
Trust
it was
me,
a
when I
while
was trying to
ago.
figure this out too, it's so
Yeah.
you got to get a calculator out and you got to get a
Yes.
calendar. It's like, where am I? I don't know where I was in 2001 and what happening.
But I have this distinct memory of like around Halloween and things like that. This movie was
Mm,
so big, a lot of people cosplaying Richie and
mm,
cosplaying the other characters, because it was like, not only was it a really big movie that was funny and all that, it was also cool at the time, because I
right.
think that's like around the time hipsters were really big. So, but I remember Richie being like, that was an easy go-to,
Hmm.
Halloween costume you throw on the tennis gear and stuff like that. But I love that, like you said, the kind of just his mannerisms. It was like a very, 70s vibe to a lot
Hmm.
of this, and it just kind of captured that time really well.
Yeah,
Um,
like the person who showed me this movie, my friend, he wore like wrist sweatbands
yeah,
because of
I'm
Richie
telling
Tenenbaum.
you,
Like
it
he
had
wore
this
it
big
like
impact.
yeah, like it's just he's my friend's such a loser, but it's like he got the wristbands on like he's Richie Tenenbaum. Like and you explain that to somebody and like who's Richie Tenenbaum? Like what are you talking about? Yeah,
Yeah.
he's the bomber, man. So he,
You're like, you
he
play
was he
tennis?
was
I don't,
cool.
but
Yeah, exactly. It's just like the character was cool, but he was also so sad. And maybe
yeah,
those are the best characters. I think maybe those are the best characters.
I
The
think
cool
so
ones and the
too.
saddest. Yeah,
Relatable, vulnerable, yeah, all that.
100%.
Um, okay, so I'm gonna talk. The next actor I think we should talk about too is Ben Stiller,
Yeah.
because he is having a huge moment right now, right? Like,
Mm,
I really like the character Chaz, this really, nervous father who's very overprotective of his children because of the death of their mother. I feel like he gets a lot of great moments in the film, although he's not maybe like the first person you think of. He has a lot of really good emotional moments too. There's like a really big one in the film that I'm thinking of, but he's on my mind because I am obsessed with Severance. I think
right.
everyone is, like,
Hmm.
unless you hate television, I don't know, but it's just so great, and so he's like the next person I think of when I think of this movie right now.
Yeah, Ben is so good in the movie, and like you said, like you just think of moments.
Yeah.
Like I think of when he's walking into the house for the first time with all his luggage, and he's telling his mom like, "We got locked out." It's just like, wait, you got locked out before or after you packed your bags? And it's just like, and again, the funny moments. He's the same as Richie. He's very funny. He has funny
Yeah.
moments, and then he's just got these incredibly sad moments. So like when it's kind of like for me, what it doesn't hit me until the end of how sad it is for him and how emotional it's been for him, and the year that since his wife died. But then because you gotta get the boys doing their plunky little thing with
The boys
Pappy,
are so
uh,
cute.
yeah, with Ari and Uzi.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's great. I love Ben Stiller too, and it's funny seeing him. I don't know, you could call it this like renaissance as a director
Yeah.
writer, because basically for
Because
my
he co-wrote
entire
this too, right?
yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Him and Wes Anderson wrote it. Yeah,
Hmm.
but like for half of my life, he was an actor,
Exactly.
and
Like,
then
I don't think I knew that honestly until I was reading about it now, and or I probably knew and forgot because it's been a
sure,
million years. But like, it's not something I thought of until recently because of
yeah,
Severance. Honestly, yeah.
100%.
so many people in my life were like, Ben Stiller
Yeah.
directing, and that probably kills him because I'm sure he's done
Yeah.
so many things. But yeah, you mentioned, comedian. There's a lot of comedians in this. Owen Wilson as well, who
Mhm.
mostly like, I mean, obviously with Ben Stiller, I always think of, oh no, it's leaving my mind. Blue Steel.
Oh, Zoolander.
Zoolander, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw a clip of that the other day, so that's fresh on my mind, and they were in it.
Hmm.
But he's done some rom-coms, but a lot of things are that he does are comedic.
Hmm.
Most recently, the last thing I think I saw him in was probably Loki, which he's great in that too.
Hmm.
But yeah, I like his character in this movie. I mean, all the characters really are really great in this film.
Yeah, it's tough to say that you don't like a character in this movie. I think that's impossible.
Hmm.
But yeah, Owen does a fun job because when you think about Owen Wilson, he's kind of a like he seems like he never stops moving. He's like a Jack Russell dog or whatever. It just doesn't
Yes.
slow down in regular life. But in this movie where you've got kind of this, the coked up,
Eli
egomaniac.
Cash. Yeah.
Exactly. You just got this coked up egomaniac who just doesn't quit. He's driving cars really fast and he's talking really fast and he's leaving interviews and all that kind of stuff. And like he's and the subtle natures to his character that you pick up in just like his apartment, like the stack of porn tapes that's like going to the ceiling, the weird art on the walls, the painting
The
on his
art on the
face.
painting kills me. I'm
Yeah.
like, subtle? What about that painting?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that is one of my favorite parts of the movie. I remember
Yeah.
like the first time I saw it laughing so hard specifically at that moment.
Hmm.
It just kills
Hmm.
me every time. But
Yeah.
yeah, he's a great character.
Yeah.
Keeping the comedy train going. One more
Mm.
comedian I want to mention, not to be left out, is Bill Murray.
Hmm.
Love him in this as well. And that,
Yeah.
he doesn't have like a central part the way he does in Life Aquatic, but he
Hmm.
certainly makes an impact, I think, on this movie.
Yeah, the character of Raleigh St. Clair is such an interesting idea to be in the character.
Yeah.
Like it's funny to think about this movie. Like he could be not in it, and I think it'd still
Yes.
work. I think
Right.
that he's probably the only character that could, like him and Dudley. They don't need to be
Dudley.
in the
Oh my
movie, but
gosh. I like kind of forgot about Dudley.
yeah,
That's awesome. I
yeah.
loved
But
him.
it's funny to just see how I don't know, stoic's not the right word, but very calm Raleigh is in the movie. But even when he's like his life is spiraling out of control, where his wife doesn't love him and she's cheating on him with Eli Cash and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And he's got his own stuff going on with Dudley, but it all works out for Raleigh in the end, where he gets his book tour and everything like that. But it's just the moment of Raleigh St. Clair is holding the whatever, the gurney or whatever, the Richie bleeding out on him, and there's just blood all
Yeah.
over him, just kind of running behind this gurney, and just
So many
and
great
Dudley going into
moments.
the bathroom with a screaming look on his face. Yeah, just funny moments where it shouldn't be funny, I suppose.
Yeah.
That's a lot of this movie.
I think there's just, you mentioned it earlier, but there's so much heavy subject matter. It's like the humor, I think, really helps push the story along, kind of keep your hopes up. So there's a
Hmm.
little bit of heart, but there's a lot of humor too. So I think
Hmm.
it's a good balance, which it almost feels like there shouldn't be, but
Right.
that's, I think, the magic of the way Wes Anderson kind of weaves that into the story. It just all works
Well, I
out.
think, yeah, that's an interesting thing of comedy. You laugh at the serious things in life. Like
Right.
if you can't laugh, you're literally gonna kill yourself sometimes. Like you have to laugh at the absurdity of life at times.
True.
And there are moments throughout the movie, which you pick a character in this movie, and you have to laugh at them, or they have to laugh, or it's just going to be real bad for them
Yeah,
if they don't.
completely agree.
Yeah.
Danny Glover's also in this movie as Henry Sherman. Basically the new and improved stepdad.
Yeah, that's right.
And I love that. I always remember like the part of the movie where he and Angelica Houston like have a moment and he tells her he loves her and it's just, oh,
Hmm.
it's so sweet. You're just rooting for him so much.
That's right.
He doesn't have a lot of scenes, but the scenes that he's in are really done well.
Yeah, well, he's like the goofy guy. He's falling in a basically like a dig site. Like it's they're doing
Okay.
the water talk, and he falls, and he gets out, and he's got
He's okay.
dirt on his hair. Yeah, he's kind of the goofy guy. And he's putting on his
Yeah.
glasses later on. He's got a tie attached to them,
Oh
and that
yeah.
yeah,
Just a
and
lot
that
of
and that's
cute
what
stuff.
Royal says at the end of the movie. He's like, I understand why you love this guy because he's everything that I'm not.
Yeah,
Um,
literally.
exactly. So like, and
Yeah.
um, that's what she needed, and that's who he is. He's a safe bet, compared to
Yeah.
all her other suitors that we that we see in the brief pictures. Like he's a safe, respectable, loving guy that won't ever do her wrong, and like.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's all you want, and Danny Glover plays it
Right.
perfectly because that's how you think of Danny Glover a little bit. I think too. Like
Yeah.
you need a good part in a movie, put Danny Glover in there. He'll get it
Yeah.
done for you.
Yeah. Agreed. A good partner. Yeah.
Hmm.
And the last person we haven't really talked about as much was Angelica Houston. I love her in this movie too.
Yeah, she's been in a couple Wes Anderson movies, but like
Yeah.
she's like Class. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you look up Class in the movie dictionary, like she would be right there. She's in everything that she does. But yeah, her is Etheline. She's just a. It's funny seeing her as the young mom as the kids are growing up, and seeing her, I guess you call it age up,
Yeah.
as the kids are getting older. But yeah, she's again much like a Danny Glover kind of type. Like she's a respectable, hardworking woman, and
Mm-hmm.
she's just awesome in the role.
Yeah, I think she's great. I found her horrifying in the movie The Witches,
Of course.
but I loved her in the Addams Family movies. I
Hmm.
just thought she was so cool in those. She's had just a long, incredible career, and I think the
Hmm.
last thing I maybe saw her in was like I think one of the John Wick movies, right? She was
Oh
in.
yeah, John Wick 2,
Yeah.
I think she was in. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. But just overall star-studded cast. I think even, star-studded at the time, and some of them even more so now. Just
Yeah.
great all around
Hmm.
ensemble kind of picture. But let's move on from that and talk maybe a little bit about some of your favorite scenes specifically.
Yeah, my favorite scene in the whole movie is the Richie suicide scene with the color of it. How it's like this weird dark green. Um, I just love his Luke Wilson's performance where he's cutting his hair, and like I watched it last night or 2 nights ago, and he's cutting his hair and there's water on his hands, so like the hair is sticking to his hands, and like inside
Yeah.
my soul, I'm just like I cannot go on watching
It's a
this. Like
it's a
having
creepy
hair,
detail that makes it feel real, I
yeah,
think.
like
Like something that would
having
normally be
hair,
removed.
yeah, hair everywhere, and how uncomfortable that feeling is, and him looking right in the camera, and how they don't shy away from it as well. And I think
Yeah.
suicide in movies and TV shows a very tricky thing right now. Like in everything
Oh
you get,
yeah. I know, I'm
social
thinking
warnings.
like I may even like no fault to the film at all and we have to talk about it. It's one of the biggest
Hmm.
scenes, but it's
Hmm.
like, you would have a trigger warning at the beginning. Like
100%.
we're just as a society, I think in a different place when we talk about things
Hmm.
like this. Understandably,
Yeah, 100%. And just
Yeah.
thinking about it now, how it doesn't shy away from it, and kind of
Mhm.
the absurdity of the scene. Like he looks into the camera and says, "I'm going to kill myself tomorrow," and
Yeah.
then he just 10 seconds later he just slits his wrist. So it's a really interesting scene. Richie is a very interesting character. Just like Needle in the Hay is such an eerie song to be playing
Yes.
over that,
The
and the
music is
visuals
just
of
really
it.
good in this movie,
Yeah,
yeah.
and like the way he puts on the shaving cream and the way he's cutting every single hair on his face with a pair of scissors is just it's such an interesting detailed scene that really sneaks up on you, because
Mhm.
like with the scene before that, it's got Raleigh laying on the couch with his head on his, basically crying, because they just found out that Margot is cheating on them with Eli, and Dudley's trying to figure out if he's going to do another test, and you see in the background Richie just closing doors, just shutting himself away from everyone. So
Yeah.
it's like what's going on back there, and then you get into it, and the more you see it, it's like, oh, it's just okay. He's spiraling out of control, I suppose, but in a very different way. Like he's not crying. He's not
Yeah.
he's not angry like he was earlier in the movie where he smashes some glass when Raleigh tells him for the first time that
Yeah.
that he thinks that he's seeing, that Margot is seeing another guy. It's just a very interesting way of going about, somebody realizing that they don't want to live anymore.
Yeah.
And I think it's, in many of media that I have seen with, um, suicide attempts in them. I think this is one of the more unique ones, and just the way it's shot and the music and the way Luke Wilson is in the film, it's one of my favorites, and it's one of the darkest shots and scenes in any movies
Yeah.
that I've seen.
I would agree with that. Yeah. I was looking through just the different images, of it. I've seen this film, like I said, countless times. Um, and that is probably one of the biggest scenes. It's like, it's weird to say that's your favorite scene in a way, but
Exactly.
it's just shot so well.
Hmm.
I liked the scenes between Margot and I don't know why I'm going to say Luke Wilson's Richie, when they ran away as kids, when they kind of reveal all that.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that part's really cute. Always reminds me of, like, I feel like there was a book I read that had something similar where people like hid out in a library, but I don't
Mm.
know. I probably just invented that.
Yeah.
I
You
like
want
that
it
in
to
this
be true.
movie. Yeah, I want it to be true, but it's a part that really sticks out in my mind.
Yeah, I like that because then they transfer it over to like their little tent upstairs in the
Yes.
Tenenbaums house with the lights and the
Mhm.
records and that kind of thing, where they can go somewhere and hide away and
Yes.
hide their love for each other up there.
Yeah. 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 What's another great scene that you enjoyed?
Um, I like it just when Gene Hackman and the two grandkids are going for their kind of the tour around New York, going on the go karts, and Gene taking over the dog fights,
Oh.
um, and then jumping into the pool and hanging off the back of the garbage truck. And then when
Hmm.
they get back to the house, and Chaz sees blood on, I think it's Uzi's forehead or whatever. Oh, what is
Oh
that?
yeah.
Dog's blood. It's just like, yeah, dog fights are a humorous thing for some reason. Like they're an
Yeah.
awful, horrible thing, but seeing Gene Hackman and two small boys in Adidas sweatsuits throwing money down at a dog fight
Yeah.
is humorous in this case.
Yeah. Or when they're all riding on that, like, garbage truck and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
and
hanging
then
off.
Chaz pops out. He's
Yeah,
like
at the
getting
end.
to
Yeah,
have the relationship with his dad that he never got to have, kind of thing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like just those three wearing their Adidas sweatsuits is always so funny too. The
Yeah.
workout uniforms. I like that when he asks, "How many times your dad got you working out?" 16 times a week. It's like, holy cow, jeez.
I also like the plays that the kids put on when they
Yeah,
were younger. I like those scenes too. Those
yeah,
elaborate plays that they did.
yeah,
Margot's
yeah,
plays, right? Mhm.
yeah, yeah. What's the one that? What are they called? The like it's like Robinson Crusoe's or whatever, but they're all
Yeah.
animals. I forget what he called it.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
I can't
funny.
remember. Yeah. And then at the end, Chaz is like, "Well, did you like the story?" He's like, "What do you mean? Just a bunch of kids." Royal is such an asshole that he can't even
He's
say
so
tell his kids that.
awful.
Yeah, it's just, did you at least think the characters were believable and well developed? What do you? I don't know, man. They're a bunch of kids dressed as animals. It's like, oh man, just say yes,
Yeah.
Dad.
Take the wind out of their sails. Gosh. I
Yeah, like
like
yeah,
too how
like yeah,
they're all geniuses, but then they all grow up to, like, kind of do nothing except Richie, a little bit with his fame with tennis, but other than that, like, they kind of just fizzled out like little kid geniuses
yeah,
that
yeah.
didn't
The
really
genius of
translate.
yeah, the genius of Margot who couldn't write a good play, and the genius of Richie who couldn't get past his emotions in a tennis match, and the
Mhm.
genius of Jazz who, I don't know. I guess he's a realtor, kind of
Yeah.
extraordinaire, I
And it's
suppose.
like I feel like he's
Um,
just a dad. Like,
yeah,
it's not
exactly.
he's not really doing anything that impressive.
Exactly.
But that's a fun part of it too. It's like, well,
Yeah.
maybe they were just rich. I don't know. You
Yeah, they got
know?
by on money for a little while.
I think so. And are they, I forget, are they all adopted or just Margot?
Just Margot's
Just
adopted.
Margot.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Okay.
that's the joke, is that every time Royal introduced her,
Oh,
he
that's right.
always had
My
to say, "Hi,
adopted
this is my
daughter.
my adopted daughter." Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that used to be a thing.
Oh,
But
yeah,
yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. Um what you mentioned earlier, like the scenes with Owen Wilson too. I think all of those are really funny.
Yeah,
The
the
various
funniest
stages of him going crazy.
the funniest one for me is when they go to kind of like have a mini intervention with him, I suppose, and it's Royal, Richie, and Pagoda, and they tell his drug flunkies to leave, and then
Hmm.
Eli agrees to go with them. He heads out the door, and immediately after he leaves the door,
He's
Pagoda goes right to the window. It says, "There he goes," and
there
you
he
just see him running
goes.
away instantly. He's just like, "Oh, that's." Pagoda knew what was up. He knew that
He
Eli
did.
wasn't coming with them. And the
Yeah,
next
he
time you
played
see
it
him,
so cool. He's like,
yeah,
you're all right. I'm gonna go
yeah,
right now. And he's like, boop.
yeah. And then the next time you see Eli, he's driving the car incredibly fast with face paint on, and he runs
Yeah.
over Buckley and kills Buckley. So
Oh, R.I.P. Buckley.
yeah, that's right.
That's great.
I like the subtle nature to Eli too, where you're not sure if he's really into drugs, but then he's taking Margot in that car ride, and they're like in this
Yes.
sketchy neighborhood, and he gets out and hits the button and says, "Hey, sugar, it's Eli." It's like, "What are you doing here, Eli? Like, why are you in this sketchy neighborhood with your your best friend's adopted sister,
Yeah.
picking up drugs in your overpriced Richie Rich kind of convertible car?" It's just so like, what is he doing here? And then you find out later that he's a total addict.
Yeah. And when he kills Buckley's dog and he and Chaz end up fighting and then they end
Yeah,
up like in that courtyard and they're like, what are we doing?
yeah, yeah,
We are out
yeah.
of control. It's
Completely,
really
they've completely lost it. Well, that's exactly, and that's the point where Chaz finally like really is breaking down and realizing that he has a problem, and he breaks
yeah.
down to his father, which is a great scene. He says, "Dad, I've had a really tough year." He's like, and he
Hmm.
said, I know you have, Chazzy." It's like, yeah,
Oh,
that's usually how it goes with like trauma or
yeah.
things. If you don't deal with it, it just builds up and it builds up, and Chaz tries to deal with it by making his family extra safe, and
Hmm.
that's not how you make a life. And eventually, it just explodes, and he freaks out, and they have a fight, and they land in some like the Chinese Republic of something, or I don't know, like the backyard of the next door neighbors at the Royal Tenenbaums, like a Chinese embassy of some kind,
Yeah.
which I thought was a funny kind of small detail.
Yeah. And Royal is a huge liar. He even fakes a really serious illness in the movie and has all of them feeling bad for him,
Hmm.
and then admits that he's not dying. But then after he patches everything up, he dies. Right? He has a heart attack and
Yeah.
dies. And they even show like Chaz with him in the ambulance. Was it Chaz or
Hmm.
Richie?
It
It's
was
Chaz,
Chaz.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the way to the hospital. But then the lie comes back with his headstone. It says, "Died tragically rescuing his family from the wreckage of a destroyed sinking battleship." That's so
Just,
unbelievable.
yeah, the priest looking at it, he's like,
Yeah, it's
"What
like
is it? Who did I just bury?"
just let him have this. Like
Yeah,
it's fine.
yeah, yeah. It's so funny
um,
about Royal lying about having cancer, because when you see him at the doctor is telling him about his blood pressure, how he has high blood
yeah.
pressure, and then because of that high blood pressure, he dies from a heart attack. Um,
Yeah. Oh, that's an
so
interesting detail I hadn't thought
it's
about.
like, yeah, if you didn't lie about cancer, if you actually did something maybe about your blood pressure, instead
Yeah.
of being a liar and trying to fake a totally different disease, maybe you would live longer to then enjoy it with your kids and your grandkids. So
Right. Right.
his
Yeah.
his, his lie his lie ended up costing more time than more time with
Wow.
his kids.
I don't think I've ever thought of that. I love that you said that. Um, Anything else? Is there anything else that we haven't kind of talked about yet?
The music is really great in this movie,
Yeah.
like how it starts with kind of this cover of "Hey Jude"
Mm-hmm.
that plays over the kids, and then we get like there's some Rolling Stones
Mm-hmm.
later on, and then the Needle in the Hay. Um, that's to that weird, quirky hipster. You mentioned hipster
Yeah.
kind of thing. That's kind of what it is. It's like hipsters think they're the coolest people in the world, and this movie thinks it's really cool,
Yeah.
but it is really cool. So,
Yeah, I think it
yeah,
is.
yeah, I think it is too. It's cooler
I
than
feel
any
like,
hipster, that's for sure.
we're just around the corner revisiting that era that they now call, what do they call it? Tweet? twee era or whatever they call it now, something else.
Oh, I don't know.
That made me sound old.
Yeah.
But bygone era. I feel like
Uh-huh.
it's gonna come back. It always comes back.
Hmm.
But yeah, I agree. It's a cool movie. Um, I don't know. I think I'm out of facts. I'm out of scenes. What do you think?
Mm.
Is there anything else we
Yeah,
need to talk
like
about?
there's so many good scenes in the
There
movie.
are.
That's one of the things. It's hard to pick just one because like, and everyone's doing an incredible job with the acting.
Hmm.
Like nobody, like there's nobody not good. I don't think there's anything. It's one of those rare movies where there isn't anything wrong with the movie. Like I
Yeah.
can't find a single thing that I don't like about it. And like I can watch it anytime. Like I watched it whatever 2 nights ago, and it felt like I hadn't. I've seen this movie a bunch, but like it feels so familiar to me. Like it feels like, I don't know, it gives me a certain feeling that I'll never forget any of the moments. Like I still remember everything that happens in the movie and all the quotes and everything like that. It's such a unique movie, and it's before Wes Anderson got to be that Wes Anderson that we know now. It's like still feels kind of, I don't know, he still feels fresh in a way that way.
Yeah, I
It's like
agree.
this, like we this is, it feels, it's like it's a lost, this is the lost one. It's not the lost one because I think it's one of his most popular ones. Like it was nominated for an Academy Award
Mm-hmm.
for best writing, I think. So it is one of the most popular ones, but like in the long list of Wes Anderson movies, this is the one that makes me feel the most familiar, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that deals with the most about family, big
Yeah.
ass family as well.
Mm-hmm.
Deals with a lot of serious moments um, that are very personal to me, and then just yeah, it's got funny. It's got everything, which I think is important to a lot of movies. It's like it's not just one thing. Like you were describing it earlier about what the movie was, and like, oh, that
Yeah.
sounds like a very horrible, sad movie,
Yeah, the
and it
description
is.
doesn't. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
big
it
moments.
is,
Like
but
there
it's
really
like it's
is.
got so many laugh out loud, funny moments that aren't, and that's what's interesting about the comedy as well too. It's not like ha 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 ha. It's like, oh man, that is so funny. It's like
Yeah,
there's no jokes. It's not a joke movie,
that's true.
which is always ones I really love. It's not intentionally. It's not trying to be intentionally funny sometimes. It's just the
Mm-hmm.
absurdity of the characters and the way they deliver lines and the way they move, and the way they talk.
Yeah,
Just so special.
I would agree with that. If you had to pitch this movie to someone who has never seen it before, what do you think you would say?
Ooh, I think it's a funny. Whoa, geez, that would be very hard to do. Because I know there's other movies that try to be like this movie as well. Have you seen the
Yeah,
movie The Family Stone,
I haven't.
or heard
No.
of that movie? Anyways, my wife really likes this movie called The Family Stone, and it's about a
Okay.
quirky family. Um, I would just think I would, yeah, it's a unique story about a family um, that is very emotional and very funny.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree with that.
it's hard to do because Wes Anderson movies are so hard to describe sometimes.
They are. They can be. But to kind of distill what you were saying earlier about what makes this movie so great, if you had to sum it up in like one sentence, like what is it about this movie specifically that kind of keeps you coming back?
The emotional nature to the absurdity of life. Like
Yeah.
it's got every part of life in it, and it's got, yeah, the emotional absurdity of life. And I think, yeah, being able to laugh at the absurdity of life,
Yeah.
you
I
have
would
to.
agree with that. It's funny,
Yeah,
it's sad, it's scary, it's exciting.
yeah,
Yeah, it's got all
hmm
that in it. So, it's a
hmm
great film, and
yeah,
if you can kind of put past, the idea that oh, it's Wes Anderson, like
that's
we
right.
talked about at the beginning. I'm a big Wes Anderson fan, and I'm glad you are too, and I'm glad you picked this movie. It was a
Awesome.
really good discussion, and really appreciated having you on. Is there anything that you want to plug one more time before you go? Anything else you wanted to mention?
Yeah, well, I just want to say thanks again for having me on. I
Sure.
really appreciate you asking me. I'm a big fan of the show.
No, great.
So I really appreciate you having me on. And like when I'm trying to think of movies to do again, if you ask me, I'll make sure I comb through your millions and millions of episodes to do because you
It's
have
been
so many.
years at this point.
So
Like, that's
good, so
okay.
good.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah, thank you so much again for coming
yeah,
on and for picking
of
this
course.
film. Hope to have you back soon.
Yeah, thanks so much. You can follow me everywhere at Emmet Davis 7.